Now, Final Fantasy is a franchise that has had its fair share of tragic endings, of tragic deaths, and it seems that Final Fantasy VII was going to be one, and then some. So, spoiler alert, of course, if you come to this video, there's going to be Final Fantasy VII spoilers, but also for Final Fantasy 15, because this video has really inspired me to talk about the ending of Final Fantasy 15 at long last, so buckle up. Hold on to your emotions, you're gonna need a comforter. Let's go. So for anyone who doesn't know, there has been a Final Fantasy VII and Oral History released on January the 9th, and this thing is massive. This is talking to the guys who worked on the square, from Naora to Nomura to Kitase to Sakaguchi to Uematsu to Amano and Najima, the whole lot, the whole crew, and this thing goes on for page after page. Look at it! Look at this thing, this is insane. From this meaty old article, there is pretty much everything we could ever want to know about FF7, the original game, the legendary Final Fantasy game, and one of the huge things that came from this was that there was more deaths planned than just Aerith's alone. Now, one fact that we have known for a very long time is that they were actually struggling between deciding on whether or not to kill Aerith or to kill Barret off. We've known that for a long time. And in the end, they decided that going with Aerith, or Aerith's death, whatever one you've decided to go with after 20 years.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
They decided that killing her off would fit her story arc far better. Being that she was the last of the Central race, it would make it more profound. But the interesting thing is that from this oral history, they've said they were actually surprised that as many people found Aerith's death as emotional and devastating as they had. But now, in 2017, we learn that Najima, who at the time was the writer of the game, I think he kind of carried over from Sakaguchi's original concepts, he says that not only was Aerith going to die, but they discussed heavily with the main staff on killing off everybody else. It was mostly Kitase and Najima. They had planned to kill off everyone nearing the end, and only the 3 final characters chosen by the player would head off to Midgar to survive. Every single one of them could have died based on our player decision. And they even get a bit more in depth on it. So they said that the heading off to Midgar part that they're referring to is actually the parachute part towards the end of Midgar. Now, I am so pleased that they didn't go ahead with this. Basically, we were going to come in on the plane towards Midgar, and at the part where they were going to parachute, I believe that there were only going to be 3 fucking parachutes, and the rest were going to die in a plane crash instead. Holy crap, guys. I kind of find this both hilarious and just mind-blowing at the same time. Now, this absolute fuckfest of an idea, I'll get onto why this would have been terrible in a minute, but no, this wasn't just some little concept that they kind of worked on. No, this nearly hit the development stage, and it even says in the oral history that Nomura had to step in and actively stop them from carrying out the original plans of the story. So all I'm going to say is thank God they didn't take that route. That definitely would have, I can't even imagine the game if that had happened. And even in this article, it does point out the same kind of thing that I feel is that would probably not have made Aerith's death anywhere near as devastating if the rest of the team had died. That really would have taken away from that. And I really think that Aerith's death, in the context that they did it and how profoundly that hit everyone, I think that was more than enough. I think if they'd killed off the entire team, that would have been major overkill. And shit, my 11-year-old heart could not have taken that, but this all leads me on to Final Fantasy 15, so spoiler alert for this, and it leads me to 15 just because it seems fairly relevant. Because it's been debated back and forth on the internet, did the entire cast of 15 die? Did the bros die? They were there at the end in the crystal. This is a debate that's been going back and forth for weeks now. So I thought I'd weigh in on it. No matter what your opinion is on what happened, it is clear in evidence that Square Enix, Tabata, they intentionally left that ending open-ended. They left the presence of Gladiolus, Ignis and Prompto in the crystal down to our interpretation, but when we really look at that scene, yeah, there's no refuting that Luna's there, and of course she's dead, Regis is there, and that just before this moment, Regis did have to kill Noctis in order to get him to that point so that he could take down Arden and completely destroy the Star Scourge. I also kind of get the vibe that when they were standing there, Noctis was going up the steps and they turned around and they were surrounded by demons. There was a very final fight vibe to it, a final stand. Now, Although I say that, there were only 2 fire giant demons, and just prior to that, at the end of the Ravers fight, they were in a far worse situation. They were surrounded by far more demons, and the bros managed to get out of that, so that kind of makes me think that, yeah, perhaps they did get out of this one alive. And then there's also the fact that Noctis has been to the Crystal Realm while he's been alive before, so it's not necessarily true that Regis had to kill him to get him there, because Noctis visited Bahamut in there. And of course, Noctis has had visions of dead people. He had them of Luna Freya, so could, while Noctis was there, in his final moments just be seeing his brothers? Were they just there as visions? Well, when we know the game has had visions throughout, that's really possible. See, I flip back and forth on this, guys. Not even I'm decided on what really happened. And I've looked at everything in detail. I've looked at the wording. I've looked at that ending scene about 100 times, and there's really nothing else for me to go on. There's nothing more for me to offer. They're just conjecture on what I vapidly think, so there's no real point. I kind of do have a feeling that them being there meant something profound, and that perhaps they are dead. But I won't dwell on that point anymore. We can all just decide what happened in our head, and I don't really like that. I've said this before on my channel. I don't like those open-ended scenarios where it's down to us to imagine what happened. I want them to tell us what happened. I don't like being left in this state of not knowing. So yeah, I've never really been a fan of those kind of endings, but nevertheless, it was still really well done, especially the camping scene. The camping scene did make it seem that Noctis was going to be the one to die and that the brothers wouldn't, so there is that also. I'll also point out that when these knights of the round at the very end, I looked at it, check it out. This Queen of Lucis, remember we said one of the Lucii was a female. She had the shuriken that was very, very similar to the shuriken on Gentiana's clothing. I just saw that she has heels, also very similar to Gentiana. Now, I don't know what's going on here, but Square Enix are teasing stuff to do with Gentiana. And finally, rounding this video out, a really interesting one. A lot of people are saying, did Noctis and Luna die at all? And of course, in my head, I thought, yes, they are. This was most definitely some afterlife stuff. But there was a really interesting theory, and it would hold up if there wasn't one small niggling detail. So we saw Noctis and Luna at the wedding, at the end. They were happy, they were smiling. Peasant started flowing with the tears. The theory is that Arden, because he was the host of pretty much the entirety of the Star Scourge, and with that Star Scourge we did see that Arden had the power to manipulate time. Remember the train scene? He was able to freeze time. That was one of his abilities that really freaked Noctis out. So the theory goes that the Star Scourge works very much like Chaos, something that's appeared throughout the Final Fantasy series a lot, and of course I think that was the original concept for Star Scourge. Because this game was going to be Fabula Nova Crystallis, they just flipped Chaos to Star Scourge, and Chaos has always been able to manipulate timelines. So the theory is, guys, that after Arden was destroyed and the Star Scourge was completely eradicated, it actually fixed the timeline. That's the reason why Square Enix, straight after that final scene, they cut to, remember the audio of the brothers pushing the car at the start of the game again? It showed that to imply that they were going to Ortisia again, that the timeline had been corrected, that they were still travelling to Ortisia, that the wedding was still happening, and boom, that's when we had the happy ending. Now, I would love for that to be true, guys. No one would love for it to be more true than me and for me to believe it, but there's a couple of issues with that. The issue is that if the timeline had been corrected, the brothers would never be pushing the car. They wouldn't be going to Ortisia because, of course, Arden would never have arranged the marriage. It would never have been arranged. The barrier wouldn't have got destroyed. The brothers wouldn't be heading out in Regis's car. But also the really big niggling detail is, come on, Noctis and Luna, they fall asleep on the throne. And remember my theory, I did this about 2 months before the game came out. I said that Noctis and Luna, they're based on Selene and Endymion in Greek mythology. And the only way that they can be together is while they're sleeping. Selene is the goddess of the moon, Luna means moon, they're both a Roman and Greek counterpart in the same kind of religion. Noctis means night, that's what Endymion represented. Endymion slept all the time, so did Noctis, although that concept got heavily trimmed down in the final product. And people just don't do that. People just don't randomly fall asleep during their wedding. So as much as I like it to be true, guys, I can't get on board with that theory that the timeline was corrected and that the end was actually a happy ending. But I will concede at this point, I've actually changed my opinion as I've recorded this video. I actually kind of think that the brothers were still alive at this point now. But I can respect anyone who thought otherwise. If you think they did die, let me know in the comment section below, guys. What do you think? Have you got any more support and reasoning as to why they're dead or alive? Go to the comment section, comment away. How would you have felt if Final Fantasy VII had gone through with its original plan and killed all of the damn characters in a plane crash, no less? There it is, guys, on the table. Let me know your thoughts. Until the next video, Kubo!
One to the three. I like good pussy and I like good trees. Smoke so much weed you wouldn't believe, and I get more ass than a toilet seat. 3 to the 1, from the 1 to the 3. I met a bad bitch last night in the deep. Let me tell you how I made her leave with me. Conversation and energy. I've been to the motherfucking mountaintop. Heard motherfuckers talk, seen them drop. If I ain't got a weapon, I'ma pick up a rock. And when I bust your ass, I'm gonna continue to rock. Get your ass on the wall with your 2 left feet. It's real easy, just follow the beat. Don't let that fine girl pass you by. Look real close, cause stroll like we about to have a party. Let's get it started.